Let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating story called The Pot Maker, inspired by the brilliant writer Timsula O. Now, on the surface, it looks like a pretty simple tale about a young girl who just wants to make pottery. But as we break this down, you're going to see it's actually this massive, deep-rooted clash between tradition and personal desire. It forces us to ask some really heavy questions about what we owe to ourselves and, well, what we owe to our community. Think about this core philosophical dilemma for a second. Who actually owns a traditional craft? Is it the artist? The person who literally bleeds, sweats, and suffers to create it? Or is it the community that absolutely relies on those creations for their everyday survival and their cultural identity? Keep that in the back of your mind as we unpack the conflict brewing in this quiet, peaceful village where pots have been shaped from earth and water for absolute generations. So, Part 1, A Young Girl's Dream, Tradition versus Desire. This is where we meet our protagonist. Her name is Scintilla, and she is harboring a major secret passion. Whenever she got the chance to stay home while her parents were out working the fields, she would sneak off, and she'd just sit and observe the expert village potters. Now to them, she was just a little girl with a passing whim, but Scintilla, she wanted to master the craft, just like her mother and her grandmother before her. But she never breathed a word of this at home because she already knew exactly where her mother stood on the issue. That brings us to Part 2, the burden of pottery and a mother's harsh reality. And this is where the conflict really kicks off. Scintilla's mother, Erinla, flat out refuses to teach her daughter pottery. And the number 16? That explains exactly why. 16 kilometers. That is the grueling distance Erinla has to travel just to gather this specific gray and red clay needed to make these traditional pots. We are not talking about a nice casual stroll here. This journey means navigating these treacherous, incredibly steep sheer drops down to a riverbank. And when she painstakingly digs out this heavy, wet clay, she has to strap it to her back and haul it all the way back up a massive incline to the village. Her back is just left in absolute agony.
It leads Erinla to admit this really brutal truth. She says, "This work never gave me happiness, only a little money for so much hard work." You can just feel her sheer exhaustion, right? And the physical toll doesn't even stop at that 16-kilometer trek. Erinla talks about this deeply tedious, exhausting process of trying to stuff stubborn clay inside bamboo cylinders just to soften it up. Sometimes she is so bone-tired that the mold literally slips and falls right out of her hands, and she has to start the whole thing over again. All of this, months of grueling labor for a single batch of pots, and the financial reward at the end is just a meager few rupees.
This grim reality is exactly why Erinla is pushing her daughter toward weaving instead. The contrast between the two is just night and day. On one hand, you have pot making. It's messy. You're outdoors fighting the elements. It completely breaks your body down, and the pay is terrible. But on the other hand, weaving? That's a clean job. You're indoors, protected from the weather year-round. Producing a beautiful shawl takes a fraction of the time it takes to fire a batch of pots, and it actually yields a genuinely handsome financial return. Plus, Scintilla could make clothes for their own family. As a pragmatic mother, Erinla desperately wants to secure a better, way less painful economic future for her kid. Moving to Part 3, the art of shaping clay, the magic of the craft. But here's the thing. Despite her mother's grim economic reality, Scintilla is entirely captivated by the magic of this craft. She sees right past the pain and straight into the sheer beauty of the art itself. Watching the potters, she observes this almost magical progression. First carefully mixing and beating the clay, then shaping it with a spatula, leaving it out to dry in the sun for a few days to test its strength. And finally, the dramatic firing in the kiln. She watches in absolute fascination as this shapeless, muddy lump of earth transforms right before her eyes into a beautiful, highly functional vessel. And the process itself is incredibly vivid. Scintilla watches the potter insert their left hand inside the wet, soft sphere of clay while holding a spatula in their right hand to start shaping the outside. That rhythmic tap-tap of the spatula hitting the wet clay, to Scintilla, that wasn't just noise. It was absolute music to her ears, a true dance of precision and care. But as beautiful as it is, the art of pottery is also incredibly unforgiving. That final step, the kilns test, comes with massive stakes. The pots are carefully arranged in this uniform pattern on beds of hay and dried bamboo, covered with another layer of the same materials, and then set ablaze. The potters have to manage this fire with pinpoint precision. Just one single mistake, like slightly overfiring the clay or slightly underfiring it, and boom, the entire batch is ruined. Imagine months of backbreaking labor, completely wasted in a single afternoon. That's the precarious tightrope these artists walk. Now, plot twist, Arenla actually knew about Scintilla's secret visits to the Potters all along, but she pretended to be totally ignorant, just expecting Scintilla to be back before she returned from the fields. Well, Scintilla's secret didn't stay secret for long. Slowly, her visits sparked village gossip, which raised a really vital question. If the mother refuses to teach, will the tradition die? The villagers started growing deeply anxious. They reasoned that if a master potter like Arenla refused to pass on her skills, and other potmakers followed suit just to spare their kids from hardship, the next generation wouldn't have a single expert potter left. No way could the village let that happen. And that leads us to part 4, the village council's verdict, where the community steps in. So this anxiety escalates quickly from a family dispute to a full-blown community crisis. The village elders summoned Scintilla's father, Masuba, demanding to know exactly why this sacred craft wasn't being passed down. Placed in the hot seat in front of the elders, Masuba offers a very polite face-saving defense. He addresses them super respectfully as uncles and elder brothers, and insists that Arenla never actually said she wouldn't teach their daughter. He tells them, "We just wanted her to get stronger first." And he promises the council that they're going to see Scintilla crafting the finest pots in the entire village very soon. The elders do let Masuba go, but not before delivering a really stern warning for his wife that captures the ultimate moral of our story. They say, traditional skills are not an individual's property, experts have a duty to teach. So, the crucial point here is the council declaring that skills like pot making, which serve the community's needs and represent their shared history, do not belong to the individual. Master artisans have a fundamental duty to teach their art, not just to their own kids, but to anyone in the community who genuinely wishes to learn it. It leaves us with this really lingering, provocative thought today. Does an artist owe their craft to the world, even if it brings them immense personal hardship? The potmaker shows us a mother desperately trying to save her daughter from a life of physical pain and poverty, crashing headfirst into a community's urgent need to preserve its cultural lifeblood. It's this incredibly delicate, profound balance between personal sacrifice and shared heritage. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. I hope this deep dive into Tamsula Aw's brilliant themes gave you as much to think about as it gave me. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.